Good morning.
Good morning. I just wanted to let you know, Jonte, that we do have quorum. So whenever you're ready, we can give it a few more minutes.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Nicole. Yeah, just about one more minute, please.
I am seeing that we have quite a few CAB members, so we might have to have some CAB members drop off that are not part of the committee. We have like 7 already, now 8.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning, Terrence.
Good morning.
And just to be clear, Nicole,
Mhm.
have more than the quorum as long as they don't participate in any way, shape, or form. So they might want to go off video and just stay silent and not chat if there is more than the quorum of the full body.
Okay. Yeah, so that would be, we have room for one person to participate, but yeah. So that'd be Crawford and Shayla that are not part of this subcommittee that you would need to go off camera and mute yourselves.
Okay, Nicole, so it's 10:32. I think we're ready to start. We'll definitely start by CAB members introducing themselves. Anyone from the public that may want to post in the chat their name and organization, that would be great.
Would you like me to do roll call introductions?
Please, would you?
Yes, Ozzy,
Present.
Jonte,
Here.
Michael,
Michael Pitts here.
Dr. Hernandez,
Here.
Dr. Cole.
Present.
That's the full committee.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Nicole. We'll just start by introductions. I'm Jonte Davenport, CAB member.
Dr. Michelle Hernandez, CAB member.
Ozzy Carter, CAB member.
Dr. Terrence Cole, CAB member.
And Michael Pitts, CAB member.
Okay, seems that we finished with that portion. We can move on to any public comment on any item under this any jurisdiction for the Community Advisory Board that's not on this agenda. Okay, so right now I'm not hearing any public comment on any other item under any jurisdictions that's not on this agenda. Let's move forward with just reviewing the attachment 1. It's our, well, so for the last CAB meeting, we actually didn't have any minutes. Is that correct, Nicole? 'Cause
This
we
would be the
didn't-
minutes for July. Yeah, so we wouldn't have
Oh,
any
July.
minutes for
Right, right.
August.
Right,
Mhm.
July 16th. So we'll turn to attachment 1, pages 4 through 10, and sort of just review it before we ask for approval for those minutes.
I would like to make a motion to approve the minutes for July 16th, 2021, Policy and Budget Subcommittee meeting.
I would like to second that motion. Nicole, do we have to have any public comment or cab comment on those minutes before passing it?
Sorry, I was muted. Yes, so public comment would come after any agenda item before we move forward.
Okay, so do we have any cab members' comments before we approve the minutes? Any public comment? Okay, so we have Ozzy who put forth a motion to approve the minutes from July 16th, PNB Subcommittee meeting, and I second it.
Okay, I'll go ahead and do a roll call vote. Ozzy,
Aye.
Dante,
Aye.
Michael,
Abstain.
Dr. Hernandez,
Aye.
Dr. Cole,
Aye. Aye.
motion carries.
Okay, now we'll turn to attachment 2, just reviewing the draft for the community program budget proposals and narratives. So everyone can turn to page 11 and 12. Thank you, Nicole.
That's the wrong page. Well, no, that's the right page.
So Jonte, would you like me to kind of give an overview on this?
Please, would you? Is that Patrice?
Okay,
Yes.
yes, that's me. Hi, everyone. So what we have before you is a draft of the budget proposal for CAB to be submitted to the for the November CCP workshop. I want to first mention that this is a old, this is prior years template, budget template. There is a new template that all agencies will have to use. That includes actually some of the recommendations that CAB has been pushing for in terms of greater transparency around contracts and things of that nature. So we're not using that form just yet. ORJ will be in communication with the CAO's office, given that the ways in which the line items are to be documented in the template. It gets a little wonky with the community programs because all the community programs are in 3-year contract cycles, and these are annual budget request forms. So anyway, just wanted to give you guys sort of a heads up on that. We will speak with them to see if there's a possibility of augmenting the template so that way it gives a clearer view of what annual versus 3-year expenses or requests looks like for our community programs. So that said, to that note, what we've included here in the sort of first column where it says 21-22 contracted provider, or the second column rather. You see all of our contracted providers for the various service areas, and the column titled 21-22 funding allocation. That was the projected or budgeted annual allocation based on the service provider's actual first year of their 3-year contract cycle. So let's use Rubicon programs, for example, 2.2 million, just a little bit over that, was actually their first year of their 3-year cycle. Their 3-year contract is actually much larger than that. But again, this is a 1-year budget proposal, so that's why you're seeing that there. So that's the case for all of the providers in that column. In the next column, where it says baseline request, again, it is just a reiteration of the column prior. And then the 2022-23 program modification request, this is the column where we include any reductions or any increases for that funded area. We heard from Centerforce as well as Bayer Legal Aid, who made recommendations, or Centerforce actually made a status quo recommendation, if I understood that correctly. And then Bayer Legal Aid asked for a slight increase. So Centerforce has here a $32,636 modification request to have a total funding request of $126,000. I do want to, and I'm glad that I have both Dolores here and Karen, because they can offer some clarification on this. This $32,000 was originally the rollover from the prior year, correct?
Yes, that's what was clarified with the finance department at CC.
Right, got it. So technically, your request is actually, we could actually remove this. Your request is actually for a status quo request. The rollovers that our agencies, our contractor providers have received is just within the 3-year budgeted amount that they have to use. And so during that second year of programs and services being delivered, COVID happened, right? So there were some significant savings, in which case our office allowed for those dollars to be rolled over for the next year. But in essence, Centerforce is requesting a status quo budget, okay? Just wanted to give that clarification. Any questions on that part? Because I know I just gave a whole lot.
So the amount of money that we had rolled over from year to year, and we're now in our final year, 3rd year, that 32,000 will have to be spent in this 3rd year.
Yes, in your 3rd year,
Okay.
yes.
Okay,
Yes.
all right, and that goes all the way to June 30th?
June 30th of this year. Mhm.
Okay,
So, but what we're working on now is creating, is establishing funding levels for not only the next fiscal year, so 22-23, but then potentially this will affect next 3-year contracts. Okay.
okay.
I see
So-
Dante has his hand. Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay,
go
let
ahead.
me, I just wanted to say, okay, so with the new RFA coming out, if when we apply, because I guess we need to reapply, we can change the budget, right? This is just what was asked of us in submitting a 1-year, thinking that we didn't know that our RFA was coming out because it didn't stipulate that in the ask. When we first got the message, it just said, could you provide us with a synopsis of your program and how much is your budget and what do you do? And then it came out that a new RFA was coming out. So we're not locked into the 94,000 if we submit a new proposal and add some services to our RFA.
So you will, so the budget amount that will be put out through the RFP will be what CAB recommends to CCP, assuming it gets approved, essentially ×3, because we will go into another 3-year contract.
3-year cycle.
right?
Okay.
3-year cycle, yes. So that's what CAB is deliberating now, is what should be the funding levels for each of these service areas. So if the Center Force is going to submit a new proposal, right, in response to the RFP, you're going to be looking at essentially really 94,000 ×3.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah,
Thank you, Patrice, for clarifying that.
not a problem. I see Dante has his hand up.
Morning, good morning. So I was just trying to get clarity. I'm sorry, I was trying to follow, but you don't have to do a whole lot of explaining because I know this stuff pretty well, but just clarifying with this 32,636 and the 177,143 in the modification column. Is that yeah, clarifying what those numbers are? Or did you speak? I felt like you were speaking to it, but I wasn't 100% sure.
Yeah, so I was clarifying Center Force requests, and
Right.
I'm getting ready to move on to Bayer Legal Aid. So just as a recap, during the last meeting,
So this is what they sent in and what the difference
yes,
with if you follow what they were proposing or asking or
Yes.
whatever you want to say. All right, that's all I wanted. Told you it'd be
Cool.
easy.
Okay, cool. So now Bayer Legal Aid did actually submit a request for an increase, a total of 177,143 to add on additional staff attorneys to address a potential increase in housing evictions with the eviction moratorium coming to an end. CAB members requested some follow-up, and we did reach out to Bayer Legal Aid with regards to whether or not these additional staff would be serving primarily the justice involved population, or whether this was open to essentially anyone that comes through their doors that might be in need of housing legal assistance. We did get a response back, and I'm also following up just to get some extra clarification, just to be sure. But it does sound as if the staff members would support the reentry population as well as anyone else that would be seeking services through their housing clinics. Okay, so it would sort of serve as for both purposes, or both types of populations rather. So those were the requested modifications that we heard from our providers. This is still, I would recommend to the Policy and Budget Committee that now that we also still have some community members here, you're also welcome to hear from folks if there are other ideas in terms of funding levels that they'd like to see increase, decrease, additional service areas that you'd like to see included. But essentially, this is your sort of first draft we're running with. And based on conversations today, we will make adjustments as necessary and bring it to the full CAB body for a final vote.
Thank you so much for explaining it in depth, Patrice. And I also agree, I would, if there's any CBOs on the meeting right now, give them a chance, obviously, to have an open floor to fully just, go over exactly how, when we submit our requests for the upcoming program narratives as far as policy and budget, our recommendations per se. how it may assist us with understanding basically the allocation of the money that's going to be are recommended. I see Dante hands up before we move forward.
Yeah, I was just gonna respond to this inquiry around other increases to consider. Is it appropriate now to respond?
Go ahead, Dante.
All right. So what I want to ask CAB to consider, kind of based off of precedents that were set last year and discussions that were had and kind of coming to that understanding, is a COLA calculation of 3% per year. I know that for last year, when the recommendation was made for what was going to be included in the RFP for the West County Reentry Resource Center, the number was taken where the current annual number was, and then it was 3% per year over the 4 years of that contract to get to what the total would be. So year one is year 0 plus 3%, year 2 is year 1 plus 3%, all the way up to year 4.
So
And then
Dante, that is
total
part of the
number-
new, template that you're not seeing here that the CAO had provided us, is to include a 3% increase in salaries. We just didn't have it put into this template, but when we get it into the correct template, it will be a 3% increase on the salary and benefit side.
So I would advocate that it would be a 3% overall increase. Obviously, in an RFP, you don't know where the salaries and benefits are going, and that's exactly how it was done last time for the RFP for the West County Reentry Resource Center. So I think that the understanding at that time was that CAB would revisit doing that again when this RFP cycle came up. So I would just give that reminder and that input. And then I also had a question just off of what Patrice was saying about, the template. She was speaking how the general template is for the annual, but the contracts end up being for 3 years. And so they're seeing about doing adjustments. And then my question was just that in the process of making those adjustments, whether there would be opportunities to do public preview and provide input on those, or if that would just come directly down from the CAO's office without opportunity for CAB or the public to give input on what's being proposed, the changes being proposed.
Great questions, Dante. Thank you. To your last question, if it's to CAB's, direction that they would like to see a template of, a draft of a template that would be best suited for the community programs and bring it before a general body, we're certainly welcome to do so. In the interim, ORJ is just going to work directly with CAO, so that way we can demonstrate similar information that is being requested on an annual basis, but more so on a 3-year basis for the community program. So we're going to be approaching them, asking them to sort of treat the community program slightly different because they're all contracted providers anyway. And just to clarify, Dante, your request then, or your recommendation is that CAB consider 3% overall increase per year, or?
Per year, correct. Yeah, that's my request. I don't know if it's a recommendation, a request. And I have something else, but I'll hold off. If I see other hands are up, I'll come back. I don't want to monopolize.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question, and Dante. I definitely thank you, Patrice, for answering it, Nicole. I see Michael hand up. Go ahead, Michael.
Oh, yeah, thanks, Dante. Hey, I just want to make one comment. No, I appreciate you, Mr. Blue, bringing that up, because again, I didn't actually know it was on the template, and that I know there was some discussion last year on exactly what a COLA was. And I know I'm the one that there was a little, I wouldn't say a disagreement, but the idea is a COLA, a cost of living adjustment based on the cost of doing business, or is a COLA an adjustment that a CBO needs to come and request and, you know, verify why they need it. So the fact that the Reentry Success Center did get that part of their contract for the 4 years, you know, I just appreciate you bringing that up. And it's good to hear that it is part of the new template.
Well, I just wanted to specify it's only for the new template, it's only because the new template is breaking out services with salary and then operating costs. 3% increase that the CAO is accounting for is only in the salaries, not, and the benefits, not the operating costs.
Okay.
But Dante, you're
just-
seeking for overall, right?
Well,
Not just,
Well, there's a difference, right? I mean, for account, so like probation created a whole AB 109 unit, but it did not cost more facilities. It did not bring those costs up generally. And they do have costs that are, you know, like equipment and things, but, you know, to the extent, you know, if a belt costs $50, when it goes up to $70, they put $70 in there, right? Like those kind of get captured in like actuals, right? And so when you're doing the budget, like from the county side, you actually are doing mostly salary and benefits. That's where you get your cost of living. Now, when you pay somebody to do something, right, you know, generally a lot of their costs go up, you know, because they might have to secure space. They might have to do other things that they weren't otherwise doing. And so there is a difference there between contracted versus a business saying how much does it cost to add a new service. And it's not necessarily one-to-one. I don't want to make it seem like it's completely night and day, but there are differences there to where when you're thinking internally, there might be costs that are already covered that you wouldn't necessarily see versus when you actually go out and pay for somebody to do something. So, but yes, that to your question, Nicole, the 2 or 3 letter answer is yes, that was what I was saying.
thank you.
All right, so we've opened the floor for any other CBOs who did not submit budget requests to sort of just have a second if they wanted to speak to the effect of the budget proposal to assist policy and budget further make their recommendations for the next upcoming RFP.
You had
So let
another
me-
question, Dante, right? That you
Oh.
were going to ask?
It wasn't a question.
Oh.
I guess, you know, I guess it's more of a, I guess it is a question. I would, so, you know, as this budget gets submitted, I know that like we have Rubicon programs, and I'm just speaking from my own organization, you know, listed here as the contractor, and I would rather not be listed for future, you know, for funds that have not yet been allocated to us. So if this is a budget for future, where we have not been allocated, because I don't want to have even the appearance that we're getting any kind of leg up on anything that we would have to compete for. So I would prefer if we weren't listed as the contractor for a contract we haven't yet been awarded. And I would make that request. Obviously, free to do what you want to do, but don't even want it to seem as though we have any leg up anybody else, really.
Well, I think that's the column that says it's asking what is the 21-22 contractor, which that would be accurate. But I think this is something that we can bring up with the CAO when we talk to them about.
I just want to, yeah, that's why I said I think it's just our request that we don't seem to have any appearance of being prioritized or anything.
Yeah.
And whatever that looks like.
And if I can respond to that really quickly as well, we'll be sure that in our presentation of the requests during the CCP workshop, we will, you know, let the CCP members know that the 21-22 contracts and also line items, or that budget is a reflection of the final year of those 3-year contracts. And that we would certainly welcome their feedback on requests for funding levels as we go into a new RFP cycle. So we'll be sure to indicate that in our presentation.
Okay.
Dolores, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, I think Patrice pretty much answered what I had. I was concerned because looking at our FTEs, and it's one person, but we actually divided into two people. And so when we talked about cost of living, the increase for salaries and benefits, that would go with two folks, right? Because we didn't indicate two. We just went with what was on our contract and not did how we have had to change it during the 3-year process. So so I need to reflect that in the new proposal? Because it's two people on that contract, and that money pays half person salary.
If I'm understanding your question correctly, you're asking if the 3% COLA increase is that something you should consider in your proposal?
Yeah, is that going to be automatically written in, or do I put that in the proposal?
Yeah, once CCP recommends to the BOS and they all approve a 3% increase, we'll have a new dollar amount, right, for that service area. In which case, then you would create your proposal based on that particular dollar amount. We will share that a 3% COLA increase is included in that. And so we leave it to the respondent or to the proposer, how then you shape your salaries going forward.
Okay, gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Anytime, Dolores. Okay, so I don't see any more hand raised as far as our CBOs that's online. I just want to do just a real quick recap for policy and budget. So, just to make sure we're all on the same page. So, Patrice broke down very well as far as the budget proposal form, minus the new template that we're going to be shared, and obviously minus Rubicon's contract that's obviously will not be up for the new upcoming RFP. What we're definitely looking at here is just the basic status quo as far as the allocation of dollars that's being forwarded to our CBOs, and as far as a subdivision, meaning that it's employment, housing, family reunification, legal services. As far as the contract award, we don't know exactly, who will be receiving the award for that. But what we do have is a better definition of what services that has been provided, what additional funding that obviously may be needed going forward, such as Bay Area legal aid as far as the eviction moratorium, and as far as, additional dollars as far as the family reunification that Senator Force so gratefully highlighted. So what we want to do is really just come together and figure out, when we go back to our full board, are we just basically going to say we support the status quo? Obviously, I think Dante made an excellent point to, obviously request a 3% increase overall for our programs that we are advocating, that's providing services for our beneficiaries, or where we're exactly at with it. I do understand that as far as the requests, we only got them from Center Force and Bay Area Legal Aid. But with that said, many of us already know, as far as the subdivisions for like housing and family reunification, the mental health portion of it, what we would like to see as far as, what we want to request. And if we really don't have any additional information that we can pull forth to bring forth to the CAO, then we would just, considering going along with the normal status quo, as well as the 3% increase overall, rather than just for salaries. And I hope I explained that right. I see Patrice hand up. Go ahead, Patrice.
Sorry, I just wanted to clarify that it's, you mentioned Rubicon would not be up for or employment services would not be up for RFP.
Resource Center.
Right. It will be
Resource Center. Sorry about that. Right.
The Green Trees Resource Center.
Okay, right. Just the Resource Center. I stand corrected. Michael, go ahead.
And I just wanted to mention, and you did speak about status quo, and I actually, I know that there's the, here I go back to the pie thing again, but there's a certain amount that was allocated for just for the realignment that we're looking at, this total pot amount of numbers. And it's not outside of the concept of CAB that there's a recommendation actually for more. And the question was where there might be a place where we might want to lend support, even if we didn't have a specific number. But thinking about that, on the other hand, I just got to put out, I don't know if I'm shooting down my own question or theory, but there was an increased reduction in AB 109 folks budgets last year, that some agencies took a bigger hit so that CBOs could remain whole. So I just don't want us to forget that going forward. I mean, and I don't know if I'm talking myself through it, but if we decide that status quo is what we want to go forward with, maybe status quo with that 3%. Just that we do not forget that our recommendations did have traction, and the recommendation that CBOs be left whole, and I believe it was H3, and I don't know if it was the public defender, but it basically probation, the other agencies took a bigger hit with that cut. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Right. For sure. Okay, Nicole, go ahead. I see Anna.
Yeah, I was just gonna also call out towards the bottom here, the other expenses, the voice quarterly newsletter and CAB support that I think the group should also talk about. I had questions about the voice newsletter. I understand the I guess the pitch for it last year, but it's my understanding it's also money that's coming out of one of the contracts from the one-stop shops. So I just wanted clarity on maybe someone here who was part of that.
Yeah, so that's the Reentry Voice newsletter is a partnership between the Success Center and the network, where they provide printed newsletters both to the community as well as it's circulated in the 3 detention facilities. So this has been sort of an ongoing resource for folks who are justice involved, both while they're in custody and out of custody. Has been going on now for quite some time. Yeah, and I see Dante's hands raised. Did you want to add more to that?
You did good on that. I wanted to make a different point, but yeah, so I'll wait.
Okay, so anyone policy and budget want to make any or share any thoughts concerning the budget proposal? Considering the information that Patrice explained, and just to make sure we're all on point. Okay, so we'll move forward. Dante, go ahead.
Much appreciated. I just wanted to respond to a point Patrice was making around the Bay Area legal aid request, which I think, and the point was exactly who these attorneys were going to serve. I guess the 2 questions I would have is whether they would be able to track time and build time only for the 109s, or the priority list people who are on the the contract priority list, And if this number actually, while the attorneys might serve other people, does this number actually only capture the work that they would be doing for this population, which I think are two different questions? Then, you know, 'cause I think that could be the case. And then if so, because I mean, my guess is that there isn't a conversation of changing that contract provision, right? Which is to say that the priority list that exists in all the contracts right now, I'm presuming that the expectation is that will continue into the new contract year. So I guess that's kind of the question. And then the other question is maybe as you reach out to Bay Legal, you kind of clarify if the attorneys might serve more than one, but they only plan to bill eligible people towards this contract.
Okay,
To
thank
that
you.
latter point, we can certainly reach back out to Bayer Legal Agency and ask that question and see what's possible on there.
Thank you for that, Patrice, as well. Just want to make one last suggestion while we're all looking at the budget proposal form. I know we haven't looked at the new template. It hasn't been released to us yet, but definitely as far as our CBOs go with the full-time expected workers, obviously that's also subject to change. I know Dolores mentioned it because she said that was just for one and they would have obviously two. So sort of on the template, maybe obviously leaving that blank at this point in time because we wouldn't know with what programs that might be awarded, how many full-time employees they may have as far as the dollar allocations go with what they would actually need for that increase. So it's just a quick suggestion. All right, so I think where we're at right now is we're going to discuss 2003. So we'll turn to line item 5, I believe, just the CAB policy and brief recommendations. I believe it's on page 29 through 49.
Oh, Johnson, just before you move on,
Go ahead.
just wanted to get clarity. So for the next, look at our timeline here. For the next CAB meeting then, would you all like to see an updated budget proposal to include the overall 3% increase? And assuming by then we've worked some things out with CAO in terms of the actual budget template and place all that new information on the new budget template and have that for you guys for the next CAB meeting?
That would be correct. I don't want to speak for everyone. I think that's what I'm hearing. Mike, Ozzy, that's what I definitely would like to do.
Okay.
I believe we also have Terrence. Everyone is okay with that, right?
Yes, I concur.
Okay.
I concur as well.
Okay.
And did we get, and I'm sorry, did we get clarity on the Bayer legal aid request?
I believe we're waiting on additional information. It's just like a lot of hidden areas because they did say that they would be serving more than just in the realignment population. So we will want to know exactly how they would obviously clock those hours and find out exactly, just so the funds won't be mismanaged. I'm definitely on board with what they're requesting for whatever, organization receive, obviously, that contract. It is a huge component with advocating for the realignment population, but I think we just want a little bit more clarity. So by the time we get to the full CAB meeting, we can definitely have hopefully that clarified and, really come to a decision as far as what we would be advocating for as far as their budget proposal. Does that answer your question, Patrice?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Thank you.
No problem. Back to my screen.
was number 5?
Right, page 29 through 49.
I got 50 here. The 29 through 49 is the financial, fourth
Oh, yeah,
quarter
you're
financial report. I don't know if you wanted, I attached that for reference. I don't know if you guys want to talk about that, but otherwise we can go to number 5.
Just give me 1 second, please. So 49.
We're trying to see if we're going to item 5 or attachment 5.
Attachment 5, if this group wants to discuss the fourth quarter financial report or just leave it there as a reference.
We can definitely give a second for everyone to look at it, see, find out if anyone have any thoughts on it.
So the purpose of it being referenced here is to inform your conversation around the budget proposal.
And we're sort of past that point, so yeah, we might as well go to attachment 5.
So these are the amended talking points that would potentially flow into a policy recommendation. So that's what this is here for, to facilitate that conversation.
So during the last CAB meeting, as you all may have recalled, we worked through a draft of the talking points for your ambassador meetings with CCP members and Board of Supervisors. And what's captured here or highlighted here includes not only the original language, but then also some of the recommended language to be included from the last meeting. So what's highlighted here is both old language and new language as well. And then to Nicole's point, you all have decided that you wanted to gear up and get ready to put together a policy brief in time for to present to the CCP at their November meeting. So these are the bullet points that you all are moving forward with at this point through your ambassador program. We presume that these are the items that you wish to form the policy brief based off of. And so we're welcome to walk through each of these or discuss each item of these. So that way I can receive direction from you all as to how you want to expound on this for your policy brief.
And real quick, Michael, this is not, is this the revised or just the old working one that we have from previous years?
Oh, this is revised.
The revised, okay. That's what I thought.
Yeah, this is what was voted on and approved in the full cab with the edits.
And just as a recap on the edits, in bullet point 2, we've expanded this bullet point to include that equitable access to diversion and restorative justice programs be considered. 1, 2, 3. The 4th bullet point is new, where we ensure all reentry programs and services are adaptable to a racial equity lens, are trauma informed, and are culturally competent and responsive to the communities being served. There was a lot of conversation, discussion point around that during the last meeting.
Right, with
The bullet point after that, we broke out. Originally, it stated expand investments in employment resources and community-based mental health services. but you all had a lot of discussion around disabilities as well to be included. So we broke that apart and included that in this last bullet. I'm sorry, to the very last bullet, increase, scroll down just a little more, Nicole. Increase targeted support and expand community-based resources for individuals with disabilities that are also justice system involved, to include persons with physical and developmental disabilities, as well as those experiencing co-occurring mental health and substance use disorders. So we got very specific here in terms of the type of disabilities that we would want to see expanded resources for. And then the bullet above includes you all's recommendation to include language on supporting ORJ's development of a data strategy to support ongoing evaluation and analysis, both of population that's being served and the impact of the services in the community. So those were the changes you all approved, at least to be amended. And hopefully the language here captures at least the general sentiment that you all wanted to move forward with.
Go ahead, Dolores. I see your hand raised. You're muted, Dolores.
Mute myself. In our current contract, we had to pay for the data system SAFE. Is that going to also come out of the new budget? Or is that a one-time, since we're already reporters? Does that come automatically, or is that going to be a budget item that we need to request?
So ORJ is, we're looking at our own budgets to see how we can potentially provide some additional support to providers. So that way it either will offset that cost entirely, or there may be some contribution through your contract toward that. So we haven't finalized that specific piece just yet. So we are looking at it.
Thanks.
Now, if any of the subcommittee members want to just give any thoughts, I know Patrice just really narrowed this down for us greatly. I really like the upgrades, the revisions to it. I think it's, to the point. It included the language in there that obviously that was a combination of all of our thinking, all of our thoughts. So I just want to open up the floor and get any feedback from any of the policy and subcommittee members.
Ajante, I agree with the edits that have been made. In additional, that's information that's been included. So definitely agree with that. It looks much better. And also it covers a lot of stuff, pre and post COVID. So definitely it hits the point.
Thank you so much for that, Terrence. And I also agree, especially with 2, 3, 4, especially the 6th bullet point, supporting the development of a data strategy. That's going to assist us in all of the forthcoming years to really have something to go forth with the presented evidence of exactly what's working, what's not working, and how we can really make changes as far as our budget recommendations. Go ahead, Michael.
And then just going forward, I'm hoping, or I don't know, Jonte, what we need to do to assure that our CAB members are comfortable with this document going forward. Not to kind of overlap subcommittee, since I was on the outreach, is, the goal was to have going forward someone who had done the process before with a new person as we go out. So I just want to raise the question, because I think I can, but the idea, can somebody say, if somebody says, expand the use of alternatives to incarceration? Well, if somebody asks, well, what does that look like to you? Can we, throw a little bit of a couple of lines together to explain what that really means? So, I mean, I like the way it looks. I guess my only concern is if it's not as streamlined as it could be, and that it might be cumbersome for the members.
No, I definitely totally agree. I think when I more per se read it, it's just that the thoughts were just popping in my head rather than just actually seeing it. So yeah, I definitely agree with that as well. As far as that bullet point go, Michael.
So I do feel good with it, and then maybe we should look at just the idea. And I know some members did it last year, and the last couple of years, is that just as a process that we actually give this, send it out to the folks before we meet with them. I know some of the in-person meeting, we were handing it to them when we got there. I think, the one we did, Jonte, that was the case. So I'm just throwing out ideas, but I like the final process. I mean, the final document for the talking points.
I see Patrice hand up. Go ahead, Patrice.
Yeah, Michael, just so I understood your last point, you're mentioning to send these talking points to the folks you're actually meeting with?
Yeah, I know that some folks in the did that.
Yeah, so because these are just general talking points, this is more so a tool for the actual members who are meeting with CCP members and supervisors.
Mhm.
I think the type of document, more formal document you would want to send to your to those individuals will probably be your policy brief. So that would be like a follow-up from your talking points. Because essentially you're giving them your script in advance.
Yeah, and I hear you, Patrice, and I'm just putting out there for that I really don't want to run with assumption, and I feel that I have the capability really to summarize things. So the whole idea of looking and saying we're going to meet for 30 to 45 minutes, and that I have this document that I don't necessarily feel the need to read every section. I can summarize that it is a script. So I think that's why some people sent it out, and I agree with what you're saying. And I'm just putting out there, for Jonte going forward, and also for the outreach. Do folks feel comfortable with that? And do we really need to just make sure we're paired up with somebody who's kind of done that before, that first time through, to realize that, it's, yeah, that is a script, and it is kind of a guideline for the discussion. And then also kind of what we're talking about right now is what of these sections do we feel like we need to flesh out for our policy brief?
Thank you for that, Michael. Any other subcommittee member, any thoughts?
Yes, I'd like to comment. I think the talking points, having been refined, really speaks to not only the subcommittee and CAB, but also individually for myself as an advocate for the various committees, the various communities that I'm a part of. And I understand and heard what Michael said about moving forward and hopefully being able to address the points within the talking points. And I'm just so glad that me being a new member, I'll be paired up with someone that has already gone through this process. I'd like to also ask the question. I heard Michael say that we needed to flush out information for a policy brief. Could I get some clarity on what that policy brief is? Just, so that I'm understanding the language, so I can better wrap my head around it. Thank you.
Well, Ozzy, so our policy brief, so you know the document that we kind of did the overlap with the 11 asks from last year? And so that was the policy brief from the last CAB. So kind of give a synopsis of kind of what we've accomplished and done over over the past year. And then we're talking about if we have specific asks. So on our last policy brief, we had 11 specific asks. And what I'm understanding is it's atypical that some of those asks are still being worked on going into the next year. So what we're looking at is there specific requests going into the next year that this CAB is asking? So even even looking at the talking points, as we mentioned in the full CAB, was that we kind of softened the language a little bit, because like, for instance, there was kind of a stronger language to ask about transparency, where, well, we're just supporting continued transparency because there's a lot that has happened, along that path. So the talking points are kind of ideas. This is what CAB wants to maybe focus on. And then our policy brief gets to be more into specifics on specific asks. And that's why when I made that comment about, that's when we'll be saying, you know what, we really want status quo. We're not asking anything outside of status quo. That's what we decided. So I don't know if that clears it up at all. The talking points are the trailer to the movie, and the
Very
policy
good.
brief is the script.
Okay, Nicole was kind enough to put the policy brief into the chat. Thank you, Nicole and Michael.
And one more thing too, Ozzy, I know sometimes we kind of use the words interchangeably, policy brief and then policy recommendation. So it's the same.
Right, and as another example, it's almost like last year we requested that none of the finances from any of our CBOs be touched, whereas this year we would be sort of recommending that a 3% overall increase go forward for all of our CBOs. And it's just like Patrice said, it's just integrated into one. Okay, any of the other subcommittee members? Oh. All right, so we'll move on to line number 6. I think it's next steps, right? Yes. So I believe it's just us going forth with the.
Would John say, sorry, before you move on, I think there may have been some community members that also wanted to give some feedback as well.
Sorry about that. I had a split screen. I didn't see any hands. Go ahead. Let me see.
I'm sorry. I was just going to clarify that on the call to start. I was trying to start my lunch early. I was trying to clarify that on the COLA. That my point was so 3% overall. I just want to clarify that it was a 3% COLA per year, right? So for each year of the contract versus an overall, which would be two different things. So that's why I just want to clarify that.
All right, thank you for that information, Dante. And I apologize if I miss anyone's hand. Patrice, did you see any more hands up? Let me see. I don't see any.
No, I don't see any.
Oh, okay.
I got a question, Ajante.
Go ahead, Michael.
Since we're going to the next steps, hey, can ORJ kind of remind us what our time factor is? I don't know, was this something that some of this was going to have to be worked on offline too? And I would appreciate just getting that again. I know Nicole's probably gonna roll her eyes and go, she's probably told me this like 20 times. But if you could,
No,
if you
so
could
we were,
indulge me in the next, next month and a half, I think I'd appreciate
so I
it.
mean, as far as like the next, like from a timing perspective, I had on my list that we were going to have a kind of a second draft of the policy budget and proposal in time for presented at the next general meeting on October 7th. And also, if we're doing recommendations, that first draft would be presented at the same meeting on 10/7. And that's kind of one question I had moving on. If you're moving away from this item, I don't know if we aligned on if we are doing recommendations or not, or what needed to be clarified to develop those recommendations.
Well, I believe where we're at as far as the information that's been submitted, as far as the recommendations, is I think we all agreed to go along with a status quo minus the Resource Center and Center Force and Bay Area Legal Aid. What they have basically presented before us, we're going to obviously recommend that, along with an overall 3% increase per year for our CBOs. As far as our talking points, I think we definitely just sort of integrated that into everything and found it, and found that it's, acceptable. We didn't get any hesitancy from any of the policy and subcommittee members to really want to change anything, minus what points that Michael raised. And I think we sort of got everything clarified. So our next step would just be composing for the full cab before we go in front of, before we just basically submit the final document. Does that sound
So-
correct, Michael?
The talking points are one thing, but the policy brief is a different document, right? So
Yes.
that's what I was trying to get clarity on, is if we are moving forward with what is it, the talking points are the trailer and the policy brief is the script. Is that how you described it, Michael? Are we moving forward with the script, or is this trailer for next year?
Yeah, so my understanding is that we are going to move forward with the script, because that whole policy and budget recommendation, that includes the information you gave with ORJ, correct, and the budget and everything. So yes, we're moving forward with that. The talking points have already been voted on and approved. So that's something we just need to start. When I say we, we'll figure it out. We need to start getting that out to members. So we are ahead of pace on last year, because I did come across some October 25th emails talking about ambassadors. So it is the fact that we are moving on, and that the question is going to also be is what kind of format do we want? Are we going to use the same format as last year, where we're going to actually have maybe 5 or 6 numbers with straight requests, how that beautiful format was out last year. So that's what my understanding is. And I see it's not a voting item, but because there's some work to do to provide that for the full cap. So do I understand it correctly? And one more thing. So, but there's not a different ask for Center Force, right? That money was just rollover. So the only other thing would necessarily be if there is for Bay Area Legal Aid, and looking at our bullets for the talking points, is there an ask without a monetary a monetary amount affixed to it? So the question about increasing support for, and then it's just it's kind of what we're supporting, but not necessarily having a specific amount, a FTE or anything involved.
I guess I still don't have an answer to the question, are we doing a policy brief or not? Because I don't.
Yeah,
I
no,
understand.
Yes, we are doing a policy brief.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So we're doing that offline though. We're not
No,
dive
so
into that.
If I can interject here, we have about close to 20 minutes left. I think it's worth every CAB member's time to actually go through each of these bullet items and to discuss how do you want to expound on these recommendations for your policy brief. So for example, when there's a bullet on continue investments in housing to expand the pool of reentry specific housing, what is it that you would want CCP members to know in regards to that should be incorporated here? Or expand the use of alternatives to incarceration, including diversion and restorative justice, and ensure equitable access to these programs. So I guess what would be helpful for us here at ORJ in helping you guys shape this is to understand what are some of your conditions, non-negotiable, or some considerations that should be included as you or advocate for these recommendations. So that could be filtered into your document.
Got you. Okay, so I think we're going to take a step back here and sort of just go over the bullet points a bit more in depth. I sort of just rushed through it to sort of gather some more thoughts. Using the example of the bullet point number 1, continue investments in housing to expand the pool of reentry specific housing. Although we did not have any of our CBOs submit any documentation as far as any obstacles that they had with providing housing for the those that are justice involved, specifically the realignment population. I would personally just say, like Denise per se, I don't know if everyone was online when she did the presentation for just housing organizations that utilize a housing first approach. You know, I would definitely think that that will be something to add into that specific bullet point, so we can ensure individuals that are a part of the realignment population are not subjected to, if they have mental health, if they have SUD concerns, if they have other barriers that they're obviously crossing, that they just are not placed right out on the streets. So I think that that would be a perfect example for the first bullet point. Anyone else, any thoughts as far as any of the other bullet points?
If I just comment, ensure all reentry programs and services are adaptable, racial equity, trauma informed, and that's starting up with the new RFP process, right? So that's going to be with employment and housing from the get. So we would just actually be supporting something that's already starting. So I agree with that ask.
Right. And with that also, that they undergo like bi-yearly or at least yearly trainings that they obviously can submit us their certifications for, because, you know, if they're just saying, okay, we utilize a trauma-informed approach, we want to know exactly how. What trainings did your staff receive? What yearly hours are they clocking for that, to show, you know, as far as that, you know, what they're exactly doing in that area, especially the culturally competent services. We want to ensure, you know, exactly what that look like as far as what training that they're undergoing for that portion of it.
And would this be what you're recommending, particularly around trainings? Would this be just for contracted providers? Because I know Michael, you were referencing RFPs, or would this be all AB 109 funded programming? So county agencies and contracted providers.
I would say all. I know the question wasn't aimed at me, but I would definitely say all, you know.
So I have a question. In that training, is there a roster of specific trainings that we're looking for? Can we be specific? And I know you mentioned culturally. I'm not really sure of the verbiage that you use specifically, but can we specify specifically what types of training, or are we going to leave it open to the CBOs to determine? Because for me, I think implicit bias training is something that's needed. And how would we format that to include? Or the question is, are we going to suggest, or are we going to leave it open for the CBOs to make those suggestions and recommendations?
And,
Uh,
and,
Go ahead, Mike.
well,
No,
no,
I-
go ahead, Jonathan.
No, I would personally say let's not leave it open. When we go forth in front of the CAO, we want to make sure that we have it itemized what we're expecting because of research has backed A, B, and C from other organizations, like of some of the research that you have done. They have shown that through attending this amount of trainings, they were able to provide this amount of services, and this amount of services was responsive by their diverse population because of these trainings. So I wouldn't just leave it open for them. I would want to come forth with what exactly we're expecting, such as implicit bias training. That's a huge one right now, right? Understanding exactly how our thoughts and how our preconceived biases really affect these individuals that we're serving. So I would say definitely marginalizing that one, just into it. So I hope that answered. Go ahead, Michael.
I kind of had a slightly different take on it. I would lean towards not it being as specific, since we really haven't. I don't feel like we've done due diligence and maybe researched that. I know we have the our job board, we have the racial equity. In the new RFP, there's provisions for ongoing training and over the course of the contract. So I think it would be an easier to just look at those perhaps, and then because I think that fits in our narrative about what we're supporting, and that that's the first kind of step that because it's basically a requirement going into the next contract. If I read it correctly, it's a lot of pages, Patrice. I don't know the RFP. I tried to.
Okay, any other members from policy and budget subcommittee? All right, I know I see Dante head up. Go ahead, Dante.
Yeah, I would just say that I think that the word that Angie was looking for was competency, which I think plays a role in this, right? Which is, I think for like contractors, I think the best way is to say, because this is typically how it's done, right? Is that, hey, we want you to provide the services and show us that you have these particular competencies. Now, what do you do to show that, right? And one organization might say, we train people when we hire them and never train them again. Okay, you get 1 point for that. Another might say, we train them, we do refresher trainings every 2 years, and we also have a position in the organization that oversees blah, blah, blah. Oh, great, you get 5 points for that, right? And so, in the contracts, I think it's usually around the competencies that you want staff to have or the organization to show, and then how they ensure that their services are done with that particular competency. Whether it's taking equity into account, sometimes it's around equity of staff, right? You do even see it in your hires, right? But I think that, once, the tough thing about contracting is that, like, once you put it in there, like, that's what it is, and there's no room to kind of even get better, let alone, not meet that standard, right? Now, for county agencies, it's a little different, where you probably do want to identify specific, you can still do competencies, but, the question becomes, do you want a standard that kind of hits everybody, right? And to show these competencies, do X, Y, Z. Otherwise, it's kind of, you don't know what you'll get, right? But I think I would agree that it should be system-wide, right? But I think how it occurs within the variety of actors, might be slightly different.
Wow, thank you for that. Some great information right there. Okay, do we have any further public comment? No? Okay. Patrice, you think it would be safe to say to move forward to the next steps?
Well, I did capture some of the things that were mentioned so far. I would like to ask if there's any further thoughts on the bullet point around expanding investments in employment resources.
Right, right.
Patrice, could you say that last part again? You said expanding investments and what else? I'm sorry.
Expand the bullet, the
Bullet point
bullet
5.
point, yeah, that says expand investments in employment resources. Is there more that you all wanted to expound on related to this particular recommendation? And I do want to mention too, just separately, Program and Services Subcommittee is taking a look at some ways to incorporate some examples of RJ programs that they would like to see in the county. So that will likely be part of the policy brief as well.
Was it ever mentioned actually hiring individuals? Sorry about that. Any hiring individuals of, the realignment population as far as some of the organization? I know, just for as an example, that Rubicon has the I think it's TE and OJT program, where they actually take individuals that are justice involved and provide them with on-job training, and also assist with paid training for that. Would that sort of fit into this category?
In terms of expansion of on the job training and
right, as far as employment resources, if an individual obviously trained there and they have dollars that obviously that can be allocated to them to provide now, like junior case managers or maintenance, or within their field, payment for up to 6 months, where they could obviously continue searching for more steady employment. I think that that would sort of fit there, or no?
it could fit there because it's employment related, but I'm certainly open to hearing more discussion from folks on that. We have Rubicon representative here.
I'm sorry, Ozzy, can you take over? I gotta grab my daughter. She's crying. I know I see Dante hand up. Thank you, Ozzy.
Sure, no problem.
You want me to chime in, Ozzy?
Yes, please, Dante.
Okay, great. Yes. So now you're singing my song. I think, and I would go. I mean, so yes, we definitely do, as part of our employment, try to give people. And there's different forms of what I would call subsidized employment, right? Where essentially those are kind of temporary positions where you give a person kind of job experience, and especially for people who haven't, who've been either, never connected or long time disconnected from work. But I would also, I'd go a step further, where I don't know if it's necessarily in these policy recommendations or others, but I think that undoubtedly, like in Alameda County, I want to say they had like a 500 hire platform that they were trying to do, where they were trying to hire as county employees, not temporaries, as county employees, like 500 individuals. Like, that was a platform. I think that there's opportunities to one of the largest employers, and if not the largest, definitely top 2 or 3 is the county government, and to have investments in terms of bringing people into those jobs, I think would be a big push. And this is beyond kind of ban the box, right? Legitimate kind of pipeline in terms of what's required. How can we invest in trainings to get people ready for those jobs would go a long way. And then also consider prioritizing funding organizations who actually hire, who have this people from this population on their staff. I think is also something worth considering and talking about, because there is this point of cultural competency, right? Where the culture of someone who's come through a culture of being either racially discriminated against or who have been systems involved. You would like to have people who know about that culture and who have experienced those so that they can kind of mold the way in which they deliver services to the way in which it can be received. So I think that those are 2 points that I would make above and beyond just subsidized employment opportunities, looking for ways to create space for permanent employment and upward mobility for the reentry population.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that information.
I see Terrence.
Any other comments?
Yeah, Ozzy.
Yes.
Yeah, let me just chime in just for a moment here. Patrice, has there been a factor with workforce development, like at the community colleges, having these individuals to have an opportunity to attend school to get a career and them have something to sustain a career instead of a job? That being one of the factors in working through expansion, investments in employment. Has that been a thought?
Yeah, so actually Workforce Development Board has been very active in not only recruiting members from the reentry community to gain jobs that are livable wage and have benefits and things of that nature, but then also in partnership with the County Office of Education for their programs in custody. They've redesigned their entire curriculum that's much more workforce readiness and preparing folks before they are then released so that they can access more of those livable wage jobs. So there's been some work around the and Workforce Development Board has attended quite a few CAP meetings so that they can hear from the community about what more they can do. They've in the past have tried to recruit among employers as well. To sign on as fair chance employers, really emphasizing the importance of hiring from that community. So I think they would certainly be open to other ways that they can enhance some of the work that they're doing to support the justice involved population.
Thanks for that.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Dr. Cole and Patrice.
I see Jill's hands up.
Jill, yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to just jump on what Dante said, and just as an FYI, way back when in the days of welfare to work, we did that at the county. We actually brought people on board, and our office in particular did as well, and brought people in and trained them in jobs. And I think that's a super interesting idea to talk to Workforce Development Board and the Office of Ed to see what sort of training can be done and to sort of build those bridges with the county departments, because I do think that there's some entry-level jobs and part-time work and short-term work and that sort of thing that people can certainly be considered for. It's an interesting conversation to have.
Thank you, Jill. Any other comments? So am I correct in saying the next steps are the next item on our agenda?
Yes, that's right. So if you all like, I can recap.
Thank you.
Okay, so so what I heard in terms of next steps, ORJ will put together a second draft of the budget proposal indicating some of the recommendations that you guys have shared so far. And we will follow up with Barry Legal Aid with regards to their request to see if they can actually bill time with reentry clients to that allocated amount, assuming that they would, because they would be up for renewal. I mean, or they would have to submit a proposal too, because we're in the RFP season. So assuming they could get assuming they would be awarded, could they actually do this? And then we will put together a first draft of the policy brief based on some of the comments that you all shared so far, particularly around housing, training on cultural competency and racial equity, and expansion of employment resources. And we'll have all of that ready to go, those drafts ready to go for your next general CAB meeting, which is October 7th. Are there any next steps, Jante or Ozzy, that you guys want to consider for the next policy and budget meeting?
I think we can offline if we had anything else that's hasn't already been mentioned as far as P&B.
Okay.
Ozzy?
You know, I'm multitasking over here, taking notes and trying to get back. I have nothing further. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ozzy. You're a lifesaver. All right, well, I think it's safe to adjourn to our next subcommittee meeting, October 15th, 2021. And that's actually in person.
And this
Right?
will be in person, that's right. We look forward to seeing everybody's lovely faces behind the mask.
So my question, will that be in the same building, the county administrative building? Is that where we'll hold our policy and budget committee meeting?
Mhm.
Mhm.
Okay, very good. I like that building. Beautiful, brand new.
Yes, I was able to take a look at it on Tuesday. It's very, very beautiful. So
Oh, wonderful. And plenty of parking, huh? You know, in
I
the,
would get there early, but yes, there's metered parking and some handicap parking in the back. A couple of spots, I believe, in the front across the street for handicap parking. And then, yeah, so.
oh, I have a question. How soon, will there be a meeting before our meeting? And I'm asking that as far as the availability of that specific room.
So we
I
October
booked
7th.
I booked the room 15 minutes before the meeting starts, but I don't believe that there's, I believe that they're at least trying to keep a half an hour between meetings, is what I was told. So, but I will be there early. So,
Very good. Me too.
all right. Well, have a great weekend.
Thank you. And everyone, thank you. The meeting is adjourned. What time did we adjourn the meeting?
12:03.
12:03.
I have.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Everyone enjoy your weekend.
And you as well.
Bye, thank you.